If you struggle with studying, then you're not alone. It is so difficult to get into that flow zone with our studies, especially when there are so many different things competing for our attention. But if this is something that you would like to improve upon, I'm a provisional psychologist. I work and study full-time, and this is the evidence-based framework that I use to help activate the flow zone when I need to do a study session after work or on the weekends. First of all, it's helpful to know what a flow state is actually made up of. And researchers in psychology have found that there are 9 dimensions that comprise this flow state, which we can use as our framework. First one is that you need to have a really clear, specific, SMART goal that you're aiming towards. The second one is a fusion of action and consciousness. So this is where you're so focused on what you're doing. The third is a reduction of self-consciousness, so you're not second guessing yourself. Number 4 is feeling as though you are in control with what you're doing. Number 5 is a sense of feedback on your performance, so you have an idea of how you're tracking with this task. Number 6 is autotelic experience, and this is a fancy way of saying that the task that you're doing you find intrinsically rewarding. Number 7, your perception of time changes, so time just feels like it's flying by. Number 8 is a high level of concentration, so you're unaware of your surroundings, you're not multitasking, your focus is solely on the activity. And finally, number 9 is a balance between challenge and capability. It's not too hard and it's not too easy. So these are the 9 dimensions that comprise this flow state, but how can we actually activate this when it comes to studying? Especially if there's challenges, like sometimes the study that you're doing might not be intrinsically rewarding, or there might not be that optimal balance of challenge and capability when the study is too difficult. When we do come up against challenges like this with our study, there isn't exactly a cookie-cut clear answer for do this and it'll be much better. But at least knowing how to activate a flow state gives you some sort of agency in your situation. You can manipulate your environment and your circumstances so that you can kind of enhance a flow state to the best of your abilities. So let's talk about some of these strategies. First and foremost, it's really great if you can have some kind of cue that helps your brain warm up to get ready for a flow state. So some of the cues that I use are to put on comfy clothing, sometimes listening to a song that just makes me feel like a badass. And more recently, it's been to read a chapter of fantasy fiction just before I get into a big study session. I find that these activities just help me to slow down and get into that zone. Also, kind of obvious, but I would avoid things like scrolling on TikTok or Instagram because it's going to overstimulate my brain. This is not conducive of a flow state, so I would put my phone in airplane mode or get it out of the room that I'm going to be studying in altogether. Another idea is to actively set an intention or a goal with your study that also fits this optimal balance of challenge and capability. As a bit of an example, I generally find the beginning phase of an assignment or exam prep difficult because it's kind of overwhelming and I'm still not quite sure what I'm doing with it yet. So maybe a goal could be to read 5 articles and make dot points rather than the vague intention of doing research in the library. If it's not specific and clear, I will likely procrastinate. Also, along the theme of that SMART goal, make sure that it's time-based. Personally, I can't study for a very long time, maybe 2 hours max. So when I say that I'm gonna have a study day, it's usually 2 hours in the morning and then 2 hours in the afternoon. Sometimes another hour or 2 in the evening, depending on how desperate I am. Another component is your mood or your energy levels, because this can directly influence your ability to concentrate. Researchers have actually coined this term an activated mood state, and this could be things like feeling hopeful or joy, even anger. They argue that these emotions always accompany a flow state, whereas a deactivated mood, so this could be things like stress or perceived helplessness, these things can actually disrupt the flow state. So when it comes to your study sessions, it's really important to check in and see how you're feeling and also honor this. If you're in a deactivated mood state, you might not be very productive. You might need to be really kind to yourself. You might need to do a little less study than what you were hoping to set out for. Alternatively, if you've got time to do this, do some activities that help to prime your mood. So go and have a cold shower, do some exercise, dance around listening to some music. From a neural perspective, there is so so much evidence that the brain's reward circuit is involved in this flow state. So that leads to the question, how can we actually make study intrinsically rewarding? There's so many ways to go about this, and you can be really creative. You might find it helpful to zoom out and start to think, actually, what is the deeper purpose for why I'm doing this? Where am I hoping to get towards by completing this study? Alternatively, if that's too hard and completely understandable, start to think of ways that you can make studying more fun for yourself. Maybe it's to do some mind maps with your research and let yourself do a little bit of doodling. Or maybe it's to take yourself out to a cafe when you do your study, or study in a group of people and compete with each other to work out who can write the most number of words in a certain time limit. There's lots of different ways to bring about a sense of reward with your studying. You've just got to figure out what works best for you. My final suggestion is to work out what you can control when it comes to studying. So starting with environment, make sure that you've got a really comfy chair to study in. Make sure it's a nice quiet environment, it's clean and tidy, it's a soothing space. If you're a morning person, study in the mornings. If you're an evening person, study at night. Make sure you get the appropriate amount of sleep. If you can do this, and I know it's really hard, try and break your study up into small chunks rather than leaving it all to the last minute. Whatever variables that you can control in your life, this is going to really help activate that flow state when you need to get into the study zone. So do your best to try and optimize what you can control. If you found this information helpful, then please do go ahead, like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you again in another video. Bye!